Hi guys, welcome to Grudy's Racing Resto. So it's done. It'll be coming apart. Decisions made. It's been advertised. Wheels are sold. At this stage, it looks like diff's sold. Yeah, it's happening. Right. So we worked out what happened, how it happened, when it happened, and how lucky we were it didn't break at the drags. I think a lot of little things add to it as well. Brenna says hi. Right, let's go through this and have a bit of a chat. So I worked out that the majority of the damage was done not on build. So I've gone through everything that's been done through this engine. The first oil change had no bearing material in it, so this was not an issue until we straightened the crankshaft. So what I'm saying is when I fixed the crankshaft, so if you look back through the 2.9 vids, you'll see the couple of days that I spent fixing the crankshaft. I actually, rubbish, put in the bin. I actually used a 3/4 rattle gun. So I'm just going to use this mini crank as an explanation. Right. So I had a sleeve on the end, had the bolt, and I had my hub. And every time I did it up with the rattle gun would do this, forward and backward on the crank, right? And it was only little bits. And I was hoping I wouldn't hurt the front main bearing. What I didn't factor in was no oil pressure. It would have thrashed up and down in the rod journal of any of the rods sitting on the way out, like this. Now, doing that is like detonation to a bearing. Now, what happens? Here we are. I have actually done this video a few times, but I thought I'd better do it properly. Right, normal bearing, sitting nice and tight, right? Now when it detonates, see there's bearing wear, right? That's where it wears. When it detonates, what happens is it shock loads like here, right? Really badly. Now what that does is when you shock load a bearing, pulls its edges in like this. This is a bit exaggerated, but that's what it does. Pulls it away. Now, the facts are the bearing will touch there and there and there and there. And that's not enough to hold it in. It is if it's not being detonated. So what will happen is exactly that. See how the bearing sits out a little bit? So what will happen is this section here will actually wipe some oil off the crank and only pulls over the tiniest little bit. And that's enough to wipe the crank, heat the journal, and then flip that bearing. Flip that bearing from there right around like that. And then that'll squash in, boom, boom, done. That's a spun bearing, right? Gives you a bit of an idea. So that's what I haven't pulled apart yet, but that's what I can tell you has happened because the piston has stopped on the roof of the head. All right. So it shouldn't have done any damage because it was so slow when it happened. So we're hoping all it's done was damage a rod and a bearing. Hopefully not the crank, but any which way we look at it, it won't. The crank and the bearings and stuff won't go back in. The engine will be pulled down. If the pistons and the block's salvageable, it'll get a 3-litre crank and I'll get a 135mm rod and I'll sell it on and it'll be a 13-to-1, 13.2-to-1, 3.1. If it's not, the block will get sold. Whichever parts are usable. The high volume sump's going to be sold. The blueprinted oil pump will be pulled down, cleaned. Everything will be checked. Everything will be cleaned out. Oil coolers got to be cleaned, oil lines, oil filter housing, all that stuff's got to be cleaned. Most of that will go onto the M88 in the M3. Yeah, this is part of working out problems. Wasn't the build. It was the damaged crank that I attempted to fix. So now Mr. Hendrick has taken his own life. He's gone. We'd gotten a small payment of parts for the damage to the crank. I should have pulled the crank out. My own silly fault. I'll never make that mistake again. Engine was worth too much money. I did want to pull the crank out. We couldn't afford to. We couldn't afford to pull it out and redo it. And believe it or not, hold on. Yep. Believe it or not, I was trying to save Hendrick money, and he ended up taking his own life anyway. This whole debacle has been a massive, massive clusterfuck, fuck up, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, we worked out what happened. We'll call it a rattle gun induced detonation damage on rod bearings. So when I pull it apart, I guarantee there'll be some loose rod bearings in there. And that'll be from what I did. Well, what do you do? Didn't have the money to pull the crank out. Pull the car apart. Thought I'd repaired it. Obviously, the repair wasn't good enough. No one to chase for the damage. The initial damage, which led to this, it's just an absolute nightmare. So, hey, it is how it is. Gives you a bit of an idea. Hopefully people understood what I was talking about. But yeah, so just damaged the bearing. Repairing the crank actually damaged something else. Went down the line. Not much you can do about it. Here's something cool. Just come back from machining today. Tom, the head looks good. I need to do a blend. So that had the 885 valves put in, and whoever did it didn't do an 88% throat, so it's now got an 88% throat. So I'll blend that in. Blend that into the bowl. That'll be a really, really nice 731 head. Really, really nice. It's going on a nice little 2.9. So yeah, here's what it is. Hopefully people have got the money to buy the goodies that they want off the car. I'd love to see them go into nice cars. I'm about to put on Gumtree. Sold a few things already. So motor will be out. I'll pull it down, and more than likely, I'm 99.9% sure I'll be able to show you that there's some bearings that have tucked their tails in, and you'll be able to see. Go back to our visual. Now, a bearing that has actually done this will wear all the way up here. So this, see this? The edge of the bearing here is not in its clearance. That's excessive clearance here and here, both sides, right? So the wear usually doesn't happen there, see that? Because it's a little bit wider at its parting face. But when you have one that's been detonated and hit here hard, because when you hit here, pulls the ends in. What you'll find is there'll be wear on the bearings in that engine. I can guarantee right now there'll be wear on the parting face. There you go. More learning. Thanks for sticking around. And yeah, once I pull it all out, pull it down, see if I'm right. You have a good day. Thanks.